Definitely
But
interesting.
let's move on to our next story here. Just a little sidestep from what we talked about earlier this week. We did have a video talking about the DC announcements where we discussed Swamp Thing. Mostly that. We also talked about the other animated project that it was like Creature Commandos, I think it was,
Yep, yep.
from James Gunn there. But Swamp Thing was mainly what we focused on. So that video is up on the channel now if you want to check it out. But to kind of piggyback off of that, just a small little story. There's not much here to talk about. It wasn't like it was, super heavily, dove into the rabbit hole of saying anything's actually happening. But it is interesting that a name that got brought up because we talked potential directors, things like that, people coming back to it, and everything. I said James Wan was like kind of the lock seal, but I did not anticipate James Mangold getting brought up. But that seems to be the case from what rumors are saying, because on his Twitter, he started posting images of Swamp Thing and all
Yeah.
kinds of great stuff. So it does seem like maybe this is the direction they're headed. And with James Mangold, having that history with already doing superhero projects like Logan and the Wolverine, and seeing what he did with that, bringing that to an R-rated property, I think he's another great choice. I do like James Mangold. I love Ford v Ferrari. I also really like 310 to Yuma and some of his other projects. Like, he's a very solid director. So I think that having him step in, he's another great choice to add to the list.
Yeah, we discussed it, and we released the video I think after the James Mangold news, but we
Mm-hmm.
actually recorded it prior. So, um, again, this for me, like you, wasn't even in my head. Wasn't something that I was seeing him in the video. But like looking at it, I think there is a lot of potential here. I've seen some James Mangold stuff. Ford v Ferrari, Logan, the Wolverine. Is it Wolverine or the Wolverine? I don't know which one
Yeah,
he
the
did.
Wolverine. Mm-hmm.
The Wolverine. Okay. And then Identity is probably the one of the things that I gravitated a little more toward, just because I know we're going to go for a little darker tone, as they had mentioned. So he hasn't really dove too much into the horror realm and anything, but I know, like looking back on his stuff after this was mentioned, and him just talking about Logan and saying, um, he had a love for that clearly. And in this article, they mentioned that I believe James Mangold had approached James Gunn and company to say, I do have a pitch for this. And it sounds like he does have a love for the character itself. And then with what he had done with Logan, I believe he co-wrote that. And saying, they need to have their own tones and their own approach to everything, and to kind of look at it as almost a segmented piece, and it doesn't have to fit into the universe. He equated it to making almost like a TV show where, I'm making an episode here, so I'm making it my own. I think that's really what he would do with Swamp Thing is, regardless of what everyone else is making, I'm going to make my own version of Swamp Thing, give its own feel, and obviously that's what James Gunn wants. So I'm really intrigued to see where they can go with it. I do think he can teeter into that dark horror realm. Obviously, if you've seen Identity, it does have a lot of horror undertones of it. So I'm intrigued to see where this is going to go. I think he will do the aesthetic justice as well. So I'm really intrigued here. Again, this wasn't my pick, but knowing what we know now, I think this can really lead to something very intriguing.
I agree. And I think the fact that James Gunn had even said that Swamp Thing's kind of going to be in its own little pocket for a little while and crossover eventually,
Yeah.
I think is a good point to that, where you said that he made Logan kind of his own. That would be a good fit then. So I'm excited for
And
this.
I think this
Go
already
ahead.
makes it feel big. Having someone like James
Mm-hmm.
Mangold attached to it, I think it's already something where you don't feel like this film's just going to be a throwaway small type of theatrical release. I feel like it's giving it the due that it deserves.
No, absolutely. I mean, the guy's got the next Indiana Jones coming out
Hmm.
this summer, so that's a huge one under his belt. So we'll see how that performs. I am optimistic about it, even though the internet likes to be cynical. So we'll see. James Mangold on Swamp Thing. I'm down for it.